Accusations of abuse and neglect, poor staff training, and state investigations have plagued a North Idaho youth home. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Kirsten O'Connor. Earlier this month, Cornerstone Cottage in Post Falls was the subject of an in-depth investigation by the nonprofit journalism organization InvestigateWest. The report detailed whistleblower complaints and allegations that led to an 84-page report filed with the state of Idaho. Tonight, Robin Nance shows us what that report entails and how the owner of the home is responding.
Cornerstone Cottage in Post Falls is not a regular foster home. The therapeutic facility houses preteen and teen girls who have been through such intense trauma they need more care than regular foster care could offer.
I genuinely believed that this place intended to do good, and I wanted to be a part of that.
Emily Carter joined the staff here in 2020 and not long after started compiling a list of complaints. And while she experienced her own trauma at a therapeutic boarding school when she was a teen,
I have never seen things like I saw at Cornerstone.
Carter and several former co-workers paint a grim picture of what happened here. Information from police reports and internal memos, information that includes multiple suicide attempts, girls attacking staff members and each other, a lack of staff training, and even a case of statutory rape by a staff member. That man admitted the inappropriate relationship, was fired, charged, and convicted. This woman, who goes by the name Mara, stayed at Cornerstone Cottage on 2 different occasions. It was during Mara's second stay that she says another girl at the home attacked her.
I was physically assaulted. I developed a TBI, and to this day, I still suffer with aura migraines and partial blindness when I get them. And this was a result of the staff not being trained properly.
InvestigateWest found that in Cornerstone's first 5 years, it committed 111 licensing rule violations, including ineffective training. We took the complaints to Cornerstone owner and executive director, Jim Smith.
The article says, Cornerstone repeatedly put children in harm's way.
So their behaviors are big and their behaviors at times are very, very explosive. Do we put them in those situations? No. Do they experience those situations? Absolutely. And we're there to help them any way we can through those things, to learn skills, to gain the ability to overcome these things. Put them in harm's way? I'm sorry, I'd have to say I disagree.
In a 5-year period, Post Falls police were called to Cornerstone 317 times. That's more than once a week on average. Calls range from breaking up fights to returning runaways. So many calls were made to 911 that a supervisor instituted a crackdown. In an internal memo Emily Carter shared with me, a supervisor threatened to fire anyone who called for emergency help under any circumstances without first going up the chain of command.
My biggest concern is that a kid is going to die. We've been reading the police reports, and there have been numerous instances where it seems like by a stroke of luck, a kid didn't die.
Emily says she went to work at Cornerstone Cottage to help kids in crisis.
And I was hoping to, go out into the world and help troubled teens like I was with a more appropriate method of treatment.
Because of her own experience, she's made it her mission to uncover mistreatment at youth homes. In fact, before she took that job at Cornerstone Cottage, she co-founded an organization that aims to prevent abuse and empower survivors of what's called the troubled teen industry.
There is no other voice for them besides the state. And if the state refuses to investigate,
the Idaho Department of Health and Welfare has investigated Cornerstone Cottage in the past, and when that 84-page complaint was sent, Smith says investigators came at once.
And when that was done, after several weeks and several people, and tore us apart top to bottom, looking at absolutely everything, guess what? No restrictions on us, no removal of our license, no taking any kids out of our facility. None of those things happened. That was what the response to the claim was.
The state did halt new admissions during its investigation, but that restriction was ultimately lifted.
They did substantiate the vast majority of the complaint. I received a letter shortly after, and I don't know if there was any continuing investigation. I haven't seen any evidence of that.
Carter claims she was fired for coming forward. Once that report came out, she did not work another shift. None of the people involved in filing that report with the state kept their jobs. Because the home is privately owned, whistleblowers don't have the same protections as if they were raising issues about a state-run agency.
I've never received a write-up. I never received any type of disciplinary warning. I never was interacted with in that way at all.
Smith says he did not know who was behind the report and says Emily and the others were fired for poor job performance.
I think she came with a premeditated, predetermined agenda, and at the moment that we brought her on board, our goose was cooked.
A lot of great stuff in the laws that, if they were followed, could result in, safe places for these kids to be, but if they're not enforced, then I don't understand the point of, having a licensing board or having all of these regulations when it seems like it doesn't really matter what a facility does.
Representatives from the Idaho Department of Health and Welfare declined to go on camera about this story, but they said they would answer written questions. I submitted those questions September 28th. I'm still waiting on a response. In Post Falls, Robin Nance, 4 News Now.
And since the Investigate West article was published, Representative Marco Erickson of Idaho Falls said he would support legislation demanding regulators make unannounced visits to these types of facilities. Right now, that is not required in Idaho. We have linked Investigate West's report to this story on KXLY.com.